Hi Earthlings, I'm Trice. Want to make acting as if effortless? Want to be able to live in the end without feeling like you're faking it? I'm going to share one of Rockefeller's secrets. He used living in the end to go from struggling, barely getting by, to becoming one of the richest men in the history of the world. And he found this secret by accident, but I'm going to show you how you can do it to make your manifestations come fast. Let me know in the comments below how I do, guys, but this concept is a little bit of a mind bend. So I'm going to recommend that you watch all the way through to understand it. And I'm going to use this secret to the genesis of Rockefeller's fortune as the story to illustrate what I'm trying to say. And at the end, I'll break down 3 points of how to apply it. How was Rockefeller able to go from barely paying his bills to be one of the richest men in the universe? Because he shifted who he was overnight on an identity level. Now, if you're like, what the hell does that mean? If you're not, that's how Trice used to think too. Rockefeller had a small business selling kerosene, just like a whole bunch of other people of the day. And he was struggling. He had a wife and kids to feed, and it was a struggle to even pay the bills. Then, out of the clear blue sky, guess who gives him a phone call? Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt is rich. Think Bill Gates rich, top dog rich. Vanderbilt was having a teeny problem. Railroads had popped up everywhere and his trains weren't as full as he liked. So he got the bright idea of start shipping cargo. And he really just randomly picked Rockefeller because he was a kerosene supplier that was close to his train. And he figured if Rockefeller didn't take his offer, he could find somebody else who would be more than happy to. And that is exactly how Rockefeller felt. He was overjoyed. He was thrilled. Just imagine, the coolest person in the universe and inviting you over for dinner. That's how he felt. He bought his train ticket to go to the meeting and he missed the train. He missed the train. And that's where everything changed, because had he been on that train, he would have died. The train fell off the bridge and everybody that was in it, poof, jumped to the next realm. All of a sudden, all that desperation, hopefully he gets this deal, evaporated. Rockefeller was a man of faith, and he thought this was a sign that God had chosen him for great things, that he was destined to succeed. That's how he interpreted that event. So he shifted on an identity level of I'm struggling, I can barely make ends meet, to a place of power. It was his divine right that he was the chosen one. Just imagine the different energy of going to a meeting with a bigwig, from the beggar perspective or from the I'm irreplaceable perspective. I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to make your life better. You're going to want to take this. And that's what happened. Vanderbilt thought the deal was all closed up and that he could just push Rockefeller around, but he found that not to be true. Rockefeller showed up, demanded a much higher price, but also said something that was so sweet to Vanderbilt's ears that he could not pass up the deal even at a higher price. He said to Vanderbilt, I will fill every single train you have with kerosene. You will not have an empty train again. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, except for Rockefeller did not have that much kerosene. He had less than a fourth of that supply when he was making this deal. Do you see how he was acting as if? But it was effortless for him because he knew with rock solid belief that he was chosen to succeed. He secured the deal with Vanderbilt and immediately went home and started buying up all of the teeny factories around. Now, Rockefeller did not create that event on purpose. It just happened to him and it shifted his identity. And this is usually what happens to us. Something happens in our life and it creates and shapes us overnight who we are, for good or bad or otherwise. But we can do this on purpose. But first, it's essential to understand how your identity collapses the other possibilities around you. If there's infinite possibilities that exist at all times, your identity locks you into one reality. For example, I identify as married, that I am married and I have a lovely husband. And so that changes my actions, not by trying to or not faking it. Well, I don't go to the bar and put out the vibe and go to Walmart and try to pick up guys because I already feel like I'm in a relationship. I already identify with that. So it cuts off all those other activities. Do you see how my identity shapes what actions I'm going to do? Now, I don't know about you, but the problem with my identity is that it was hidden from me. I wasn't fully conscious of what I identified with until I was reading this book, Parallel Realities of Self. It has this really cool page that helps you know what you identify with. I mean, it breaks it down. It starts with very simple things like gender. Now, I wrote, I am a woman. And I asked myself, why didn't I write down, I am a goddess? Nationality, I'm an American. Hair color, my hair color is dark brown. Now, if you're interested in this, you could either buy this book, it's on page 128, or send me an email and I will send you a copy of the list. You first write down how you currently identify with things. I always talk how I'm a financial planner. So when it came to the profession thing, I identify as a financial planner. The second step is you imagine your manifested reality, acting as if, think how you would answer these questions in that reality. And this is eye-opening. You will see the shifts in identity. Now, this shift will only be on paper, but being aware of it is the first step. For example, status. One of the questions was, what's your current status? And I wrote, worker bee. Oh my gosh, I know, but that's how I identified, and I had to write my current truth. Now I'm manifesting $1 million income stream. So I shifted my mind to imagine how it would feel. And I would not identify as worker bee. I would identify as very wealthy. And for me, it was such an eye-opener how different my current identity was from my manifestation identity. For example, handling problems. I currently find them stressful, but when I'm living in the end of my manifestation, the $1 million yearly income stream, I find them easy to handle. It gives me pleasure. It's like, this is what I'm great at. Do you see how divided those two things are? Now, how do you change the gap? I did a whole video detailing the step-by-step process, and I will link it right here. But I really feel like I left some important parts out, so I'm going to add them here. The process essentially consists of, you start to meditate so that you can detach from your current identity and go into your universal self where all possibilities exist. Then I recommend picking a crappy memory, something that you would like to change about the past. And why I suggest that is because crappy memories are very emotionally charged. When you think about them, they hurt your heart. So after you do the meditation, if that doesn't happen anymore, you know that you shifted to a parallel reality. It makes it easier to see the shift, as opposed to when you start identity shifting, that say I identify as a poor person and I'm going to shift and identify as a rich person. Unless you have a life-changing experience like Rockefeller, it might not be so apparent to feel the shift. So I recommend starting with something that allows you to see it so you can build your faith. Also, what's really helpful in an identity shifting is we get so locked into our one perspective, the one that we currently identify with. Sometimes it can be super hard to see another perspective. So if you're trying to shift from that poor mindset to a rich mindset, find examples of rich people you admire walking around here on earth. In Think and Grow Rich, they called this the mastermind. The people you do not have to know. If you pick somebody like Steve Jobs, you can imagine what he would think of a situation. Another example would be looking at it from a third-person perspective. When you're meditating and you're detached, you can see yourself outside yourself, and that might allow you to see another perspective. Or think the exact opposite. If you think everybody hates you at your birthday party, if you're trying to identity shift, imagine you thought everybody loved you. How would that same situation appear through that lens? At first, it will feel like pretending until you embody it and accept it as your own. But like with all things, the more you practice, the easier it gets. The more fluid you're able to think about your identity, the more possibilities that will exist for you. And to sink one into place, all you have to do is choose it and identify with it. I found this challenging to make and be succinct. But I thought it was worth the try because it has changed my life. It has made things so much more effortless and easy. I can work on things that I was scared to work on before. Until next time, my darling Earthling, ciao!